Hey friends, you're watching BrainStormAcres. I'm Henry. This battery has a seal. It's supposed to have a gasket right there, and it's not there now. And what that means is it's not as water resistant as when I bought it. And that's a problem, and that's part of tomorrow's conversation. There are a couple of communication cables on here because these batteries communicate with each other. It's cold out. We've had temperatures down around 10 degrees at night for 3 or 4 days. It may be a little too cold in here for these batteries. So one of the things I'll do is I have a heater over here that we run on the pilot light. That's usually enough to keep this utility building warm enough for these batteries. But when I'm done putting this back together, I'm going to go ahead and turn that heater on full blast. Now, because it's not vented, it's going to eventually shut off because of lack of oxygen in the utility building. It's not a big deal. I'm not going to be in here. But I will have to come back out and turn it back on.
Now, when I don't have a nice little easy to use stick left over from the wax casting process, I can simply use one of these pieces here. And this is just sold as sprue wax. And I'm going to cut a couple pieces here. It is really brittle right now because this stuff is intended for room temperature. Well, room temperature is like 70 degrees. Well, no, room temperature is like 40 some odd degrees here. So it gets a lot more brittle. And I actually switch different kinds of waxes depending on the temperature. So in the summertime, I use waxes that are more brittle because I don't want them to melt. And in the wintertime, I wind up switching to something that is a bit softer. But despite this being a softer wax, it's still pretty hard right now because it's cold in here. My fingers are cold. It takes a while for the fire to heat up, but I wanted to get at least some wax work done this afternoon because I have a bunch of stuff to do and we have an event to go to next month. What I'm trying to do is go through my stock. I'm going to toss that one. That's got too many holes in it. It looks great on the outside, but inside it's hollow in a bunch of spots. So I'm going to toss that one. And we'll go back to these, which have been sitting here for a little while now and should be cool enough to have structural integrity. Dip it in the sticky wax. Bring it over here. And stick it on here.
That's one communication cable that's unplugged. I have one more on the bottom. This is the standard network cable. It's just wired a little differently. Those two cables are off. I now need to unplug the switch. I'm going to use my flashlight. Siri, turn on flashlight. I'm looking for a release tab. Pretty much all of these connectors that snap together are going to have some kind of a release that you have to press in order to separate the connectors apart. Now this is the connection between the power switch and the processor that's in this battery to turn the battery off and on. I want to make sure I don't turn the battery on. That would not be a good thing. Siri, turn off flashlight. And I just unplugged from the display that tells me how much charge there is in the battery. And now comes the tricky part. Batteries have a positive and negative terminal. This battery has a positive negative terminal. Now, the problem with a terminal is this is held together by bolts. I have to take it off, but I need to make sure I don't touch these terminals together, even though the switch is off, so the battery shouldn't be put any voltage out to the terminals. I don't want to take the risk. So I'll pull this cap off right here, if I can.
And I have to make sure that nothing's going to hang out to the edges, so nothing can stick out any farther than that, because I have to be able to put a metal cylinder around this, stainless steel pipe, if you will, to hold the investment in, which is a type of specialty plaster. Now, these three guys have been stuck on here with wax, and I don't know how well you can see this or not, but it's a little lumpy, it's not smooth, and all that kind of stuff. And what I want to make sure is that it's really going to stay. So I've got more wax on here, and I'm simply going to run around the bases of this. What this is going to do is it's going to create a neater transition between the button, which is this part here, and the sprue, which is that little stick part, and the actual piece that is going to cast. So that's what we want, is a nice smooth transition so that the wax will flow. Think about water going through a pipe. You don't want what they call turbulence, which means where your wax is flying in all different directions. Your metal is flying in all different directions because your wax was lumpy and caused rough spots on the inside of the mold. So there we go. Now we have three little girls, three little Valkyrie girls.
Now these terminals have insulating covers over the nuts. Well, friends, it's another day of working in the utility building on this battery. This is quite a saga. So what I was talking about yesterday was This switch right here has 3 terminals, 3 places to put wires. The one that came with this unit has 2 positions. Well, I contacted the company and they're very helpful. Said, just go ahead and swap out this switch for the old switch. So I took everything back apart again this morning, and wouldn't you know it, the barrel of this switch is bigger around than the barrel that's in the original battery. The problem with that is I can't put the old battery into this hole. The hole's too big. I don't have a bushing that'll go in it, and I want to make sure, or at least I wanted to make sure, that this faceplate would actually be water resistant, just the same as the battery was when we first got it. So I put the gasket on here, as you saw. Look, it stayed just fine. So I found out I couldn't actually put the old switch into the new faceplate. Okay, well, that's not the way I wanted it to work. That's not the way we'd agreed with the manufacturer, but okay, I'll put the old one back on. So you may remember that I had 2 gaskets. Both the gaskets are the same. So I said, well, I'll just clean up that faceplate, get the goop off of it. I think it's RTV. I'm going to call the manufacturer on Monday and talk to them about it. But I tried putting this gasket on the old faceplate, and you know what? It doesn't fit. This gasket is a little longer than the original faceplate will take, and that's a problem. So I cleaned the old faceplate up, put it all back together. The battery works just fine. Now what I need to do is get this battery voltage to closely match the battery voltage of the other 2 batteries. By close, it has to be less than a half volt difference in order to actually connect this battery up to the other 2. And that's going to be tricky. I've been trying to do that now for a couple of weeks. So I'm going to try running the generator tonight, and I should be able to get enough voltage overnight to allow me to connect it up tomorrow. And that wasn't what I'd planned. I'd planned to be able to connect this up today. Sometimes things don't go the way you planned, especially when you're working with equipment that the manufacturer's a distance away. Now, this company's only in Pennsylvania. I have other equipment here on the homestead that came from China, and that's a whole lot further away, and the worst part is the time lag. I send information to China, and it takes a couple of days for information to come back, and that's if they're really being responsive. This company in Pennsylvania has been fabulous to work with, but I'm going to have some words about how their batteries have been built over the past 2 years, because they're not the same. Now, I'm not insisting that they have to be the same, but you know, there ought to be some kind of information available to them that says, here's what you need to have, here's how you need to fix it. I'm going to have some other conversations about this battery, because I have some questions about it now. Well, that's what you have to do. System's working just fine, but 1/3 of our battery capacity is sitting right here unused, and has been since July. I've been waiting for parts to come in and have the time to mess around with it. And this weekend was the weekend to get it all done. Well, actually, I wanted it done today. It's not going to get done, so hopefully I'll get it done tomorrow. Irene's down in the studio. She's making great progress on making waxes. She has a ton of them done. There's more that needs to be done, But you know, now that that digital vacuum wax injector is working, I can also do waxes, so she can be doing something else. I don't have the same skill, the same manual dexterity skill that Irene has. She's been casting like this for 20 years, and I haven't. But I know how it works, and I know how it should work. If I'm just trying to hold molds together with my hands, or even using the clamps to hold them together, I don't always get them together the way they should be. So, this new system will allow me to start making waxes for her. So we can start getting an inventory of waxes built up so that she can cast pretty much whenever she wants. Well, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications because we have a lot more going on around here. A lot more. I'll be getting this third battery hooked up to the solar system, I hope tomorrow. I'm planning on tomorrow. And then I'll be doing some work with Irene down in the studio. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one. Don't forget to brainstorm. Bye.